Today on Unscripted, America's COVID vaccine takes a PR hit, Cyberpunk 2077's launch continues to make the Hindenburg look like a resounding success. President-elect Joe Biden bitch slaps Pete Buttigieg with a meaningless cabinet appointment, and the city of Paris hires too many women. All these stories and more here on RFX.
Dance like there's no tomorrow.
All right, I wanted to talk a little bit about this story here, and it says, Tennessee nurse passes out after getting COVID-19 vaccine. Now, I'd just like to show a quick clip of the nurse who's giving this press conference, and you'll take a quick look, and then we'll talk about it here. You got to admit, just from a purely optics perspective, this is a freaking disaster. You have a nurse, and the whole point is that you have here this highly trained nurse who works in an emergency room. She's been treating COVID-19 patients. She just gets the shot. Now she's in front of the cameras saying, I got the shot. I feel fine. It's all good. This is going to be great. And then in the middle of saying that, she passes out. She faints on camera. From a purely optics perspective, that is a freaking disaster. What I noticed more in the video was the sort of slow, befuddled reactions of all the different white-coated doctors around her. You just have these kind of old middle-age-ish doctors going what are you, do I touch you? Is that appropriate? I don't fucking know. My hands are clean. My hands are clean. I didn't do anything. You know, that's sort of what it looks like to me. Eventually people start to kind of get the picture. They're like, whoa, shit, she just passed the fuck out. And they start kind of running up a little bit, and you start to notice a little bit more commotion. The other part that I love, and hopefully you can see this right here on your screen, is that the way that the camera tilts away for a second. So you have a camera guy. He's filming this. She starts to pass out, and then you'll notice he pans off to the right, because he's probably thinking maybe I shouldn't put this on camera. This is, this could be fuck it. I'm just going to go right back on, zoom right on her face. Fuck it. This is my job. I got to do it. That's basically the thought process that I see with that camera. You got to admit, it's a little bit funny. All right. So then let's move on here. Here's a bit of gaming news here from Bloomberg, of all places, that says Cyberpunk game maker faces hostile staff after failed launch. Well, that may be true. Perhaps they do face a hostile staff, but you know who else is really hostile towards them? Me, and every other player who has an Xbox One base model, and the game looks like absolute shit. And they knew it looked like shit, and they sold it to everybody anyway. I can't even wrap my head around how corporate calculated bullshit that is. It's so fucked up. They knew it. They knew they had a crappy product. They sold it to everybody anyway, probably making the calculation that, the statistics say that only about 8% of people tend to return their items, so we'll still make a fucking load of money. That's probably what they were thinking. They're the game looks like shit, but everybody's gonna buy it anyway, not knowing that it looks like shit, and so we'll still sell a zillion copies, even though the product sucks. We'll still make our money, and it's all gonna work out just fine. At the end of the day, we've just gotta beef up our PR department to try to weather this storm for a little while, and we will soldier on, and I'll have lots and lots of money. But, okay, I'm a little upset about this one. I gotta admit, I get upset about that one. Alright, so here's one from CBS News. It just made me smile a little bit. I can't help it, but it did. It says, Paris City Hall fined for hiring too many women under law aimed at fixing gender balance. So obviously they overcorrected a little bit there. Which anyone with half a brain could tell you was going to happen. Suddenly, the only virtuous thing to do for every politician out there was to just hire nothing but women, because you couldn't go wrong. Nobody was ever going to call you on it. But apparently, whoever it is that's fining the city of Paris 900,000 euros, it looks like, most people wouldn't. Because all you do is invite trouble when you do that. But apparently somebody, I don't know if it was an EU bureaucrat or whatever it was, had the balls to just be like, yep, you fucked up. Yep, nope, it's not 50-50 parity. How about that? No, it looks like your women are getting paid more than the men. So actually, you need to start docking their pay. How's that? And let's just use this as a little springboard to talk about the gender wage gap. I just gotta say it. when you take that number, when it says that in the U.S. at least that women earn 77 cents on the dollar for to men, so they only earn 77% of what men do for doing the same job. First of all, this is completely false. That is a very misleading statistic. The way you get that 77% number is that you take all women in the economy and all men in the economy, compare their median wages, their median income of all of them, and put them side by side, just those two numbers side by side, and you'll see that the number for women equals 77% of the number for men. But that's an incredibly misleading way of looking at it. Obviously, you have to account for all these other factors in terms of education levels and stuff. People will often mention the number of hours worked, but they never hone in on that, and I want to hone in on that one specifically to prove the point of how ridiculous it is to just take the median incomes of all men and all women and put them side by side and say, look, women are being paid less than men for the same work. So, when I worked at a TV news company, I was a freelancer and I got paid a daily rate. I won't say what the daily rate actually is, but for numerical simplicity's sake, let's say it was $200 a day. So if I work 4 days that week, I make $800, right? $200 times 4 equals $800. That's how much I made that week. Now let's say I have a female colleague who does the same job that I'm doing, but she gets paid $300 per day. Her day rate is $300, right? So she makes more than me. Now, if she only works 2 days that week, she makes $600. I worked 4 days that week and I made $800. So at the end of the week, I made more money than she did. I made $800 and she made $600. So if you took my wages compared to hers, you would say, oh, the man is getting paid more than the woman. But obviously, her salary is actually higher than mine, because if she then worked 3 days a week, she would make $900, which is $100 more than my $800 that took me 4 days to make, right? And if she worked 4 days, the same number of days that I did, she would have $1,200, which is significantly higher than my $800. So she actually has a higher salary than me, but she worked fewer days or fewer hours. So just based on that alone, if you're not accounting for the number of hours worked, then you are going to have a very misleading statistic if you just take the median income of all men and the median income of all women and put them side by side and say, hey, the men is higher than the women. So if that's not clear, let me know in the comments below, and I will do my best to take another stab at explaining that one on how number of hours worked affects the statistics with how the wage gap works. Moving on to the next story. All right, we have one here from CNN that says Joe Biden picks Pete Buttigieg to be transportation secretary. Now, it's true. I don't know that much about how politics works, about how the government works, but it seems to me like being the transportation secretary is a slap in the face. Could you name who the transportation secretary is right now? Unless, of course, you're listening to this in the future and it's Pete Buttigieg. Name two previous transportation secretaries in United States history. It is not exactly a high-profile job. And so when Joe Biden picks Pete Buttigieg, I would imagine in the mind of Pete Buttigieg, now he may try to rationalize, oh, this is a good stepping stone, you know, I'll be able to do some stuff with Teslas or something, and maybe I'll get elected president one day. I mean, maybe that's what he's thinking in his mind. I'm sure he does probably think something like that in his mind. But when Biden was like, don't worry, Pete, you've got big things ahead of you, and then when, in the end, you get transportation secretary, you might as well have just said, here, Pete, hold these balloons. This is what you're worth. All right, we have a headline here from Huffington Post, which says, SCOTUS punts on Trump plan to hijack census tally. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I have no idea what that headline means. I really don't. But I honestly think this would be a far clearer headline if they replaced the word punt with shit. So if you're going to use informal language like that in your headlines, then just go all the way. Just go all the way. Just be like, fuck it. We're just going to SCOTUS shits on Trump's plan. Like, just say that. Just say it. It's more, I mean, it's more clear. and what you actually mean. But what's this punt shit? What are you, like, that anxious to be British? What is it? I've never heard an American use the word punt in a slang way as a put down before. I mean, maybe I'm just out of it. Maybe if I lived in New York or wherever the person lives who wrote this, be like, oh yeah, people use punt all the time. Yeah, I punted this asshole the other day. Like, maybe people use that. I don't know, but I haven't heard that slang. So, just stop trying to be British. Just say SCOTUS shits on Trump's plan. Just say that. It's better. It makes sense. At least people will know what the fuck you're talking about. But that's just me. That's just my take on the Huffington Post headline there. All right, so we have a headline here from the Daily Wire, which says, Sweden's king denounces country's relaxed COVID-19 measures. Quote, we have failed. Well, so obviously what they're referring to is that Sweden very famously did not do any lockdowns or any of the other kind of really stringent public health measures that most other countries did, and their idea was that they were going to go for herd immunity as the quickest way to deal with the virus, knowing that they would have losses, but that in the long run this would prove the most efficacious policy towards dealing with the virus. So that's what it's talking about. Now, the way I look at this headline is that it's only the second half of what the actual headline originally was. And the original headline said something along the lines of, after being visited in the middle of the night by a masked assassin, Sweden's king denounces country's relaxed COVID-19 measures. We have failed. I'm sure I'm off base on that one, but for some reason when I saw that, I was like, somebody got to him. But you know, that's probably just me living in a fantasy world, which is definitely the case. All right, everybody, I think that does it for today's episode. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Plus, stay tuned for more content coming soon. See you next time, everybody. Bye-bye.